Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining me today for another Twilight Zone video in my Twilight Zone ranking series where I rank every episode of the original series from my least favorite to my favorite. Today I'm going to be talking about number 142 on my list, I Dream of Genie, written by John Furia and directed by Robert Gist. This is a season 4 hour-long episode, and as always there will be spoilers. So this one is about a man named George who's kind of down on his luck. Seems like he hasn't had a lot of great luck lately. And of course he finds a genie in a bottle. But the twist to this is he can only get one wish. So George creates all these fantasy sequences to imagine what each wish would look like. So sort of a slight twist on kind of an old and tired formula, honestly. So when I started watching this episode, I got to be honest, I wasn't looking that forward to it. I've never been that big of a fan of I Dream of Genie. But I have to say, this is why I rewatched all the episodes. I started finding this episode entertaining. I'm like, maybe I was too hard on this episode in the past. It's relatively fast-paced and amusing. And I really like the fact that the genie was only giving out one wish instead of multiple wishes, because it made George's decision on the wish actually feel like there were some stakes and make it important, because he really couldn't afford to mess it up. So, then we go to the fantasy sequences. The first one's actually quite good. George imagines that he's married to this girl that he's like from The Office, and it's basically kind of what this wish is about. And it's kind of creative and funny. I actually laughed a couple times in this sequence. I'm like, wow, this is pretty good. Unfortunately, and kind of abruptly, in my opinion, the episode just completely runs out of steam there. This is an episode, had it been a half hour long, I think it probably would have worked a lot better. It almost feels like they had a half an episode's worth of material and knew they had to extend it, so it just kind of kept going. Because the other two wishes about having wealth and power seem very repetitive, and each one gets less amusing and entertaining than the one before it. I thought they got worse and worse. And it feels like the episode just loses a lot of its charm and even some of its energy by the last, fantasy sequence. I was just kind of ready maybe for this one to end. It's not terrible, but definitely not as good as the first part of the episode. It just seems like they kind of ran out of ideas here and needed more material. But with that being said, there was a dog in this episode that was fun to watch. I enjoyed Patricia Barry's performance, where she kind of plays different versions of her character in each fantasy sequence. And the lead actor, Howard Morris, is fine. He does a decent job here. The genie himself is okay, I guess. So as far as the twist of this episode goes, George finally decides that since none of these fantasy sequences turned out the way he would like them to, he just decides to become the genie and help other people by granting them wishes. The twist, I could take it or leave it. It's okay. I guess it makes sense in the context of the episode. I never totally bought that this was a great twist, but I guess it works well enough. And, this episode as a whole, I enjoyed the beginning. It kind of runs out of steam, but there's some things I like about it, and I'd probably give it another watch every so often, and maybe like it even more, who knows. But it's definitely not an episode that I, want to revisit all the time. So I Dream of Genie comes in at 142. It's just kind of okay. As always, feel free to leave a comment on what you think of I Dream of Genie, and the next video will be number 141. Thanks for watching.